Welcome to the sketching phase. In most cases, I don't sketch a lot when I start working on a new piece. Sometimes I still do it to find shapes and also define my composition roughly. It's very likely that we will change composition later in 3D, but we can try and get an idea of the elements we need in our image, and hopefully we can create some cool shapes, which will inspire the creation of 3D assets. I'm roughing in some layers and values here just to get the ball rolling and develop a feeling for the scene. I know I want a wide format to capture the epic landscape. I also want our main point of interest to be in the center for now. While I'm sketching, I have my references on the second screen. I'm trying to follow some rules of composition and keep things in mind that I found to be working well, like certain brushes, but it's almost impossible to remember everything while working. So mainly I'm trying to create big, medium and small shapes and get a value structure down first. Then I try to refine my shapes. I use a very blocky brush for the main masses. For finding shapes, I like to use a brush a friend gave me. It's basically just a bar, and if I use the eraser with the same brush, it behaves a bit chaotic, which helps me letting go of my usual behavior and find new shapes. Now that I have laid the base for the scene, I start to define shapes for the centerpiece. I'm just playing around, trying to find something that I like. Maybe it would be cool to bring in a new layer, some kind of a wall with an epic gate maybe. I'm continuing with keeping some elements that I like instead of starting from scratch every time and focus on my center elements. I stick to this point of view because I know that finding interesting perspectives will be much easier in 3D. I want to use the sketching phase mainly to find shapes for my architecture and maybe some compositional ideas. Every time I want to keep an idea, I just create a group of all my layers, duplicate it and start painting in the new one. This way I can quickly iterate on a certain part of the sketch without losing ideas I might want to fall back to. So far my shapes are fairly fantasy-like. At some point I'm starting to try more modern ones. And yeah, I think I want to go in this direction. Maybe mix these styles. Next, I had the idea that the character in the foreground could ride on a mount, something with long legs, maybe a giant bird. At some point, I'll have to decide if I want to go with a bigger character in the foreground, which gives me the opportunity to show more of it, or if I want to make it smaller, which could help sell the epic scale of the rest better. I think we'll model some at least placeholder for the character, maybe for the bird as well. Let's see what we're going for. As you can see here, I'm creating a new folder to keep my foreground, and then I start playing around with the shapes and trying to come up with more sci-fi shapes, and I'm just using the elements I already created and stretch them around, making them much bigger or angle them like you can see here, and just try and create more versions and come up with ideas. In this sketch I try to come up with a palace-like building in the background, something Star Warsy, with like a flat or rounded roof, maybe some desert architecture or so. And since it reminded me a lot of Star Wars, I came up with this ship hovering over the palace there. I ended up deleting the whole palace in the end and just keeping the big thing there in the background. I just wanted to convey a very huge plains the characters like riding through. In this one, I'm trying to create a shipwreck, and this one, yeah, was kind of hard because, hard surface pieces are always better designed in 3D, but I still wanted to try out some shapes, and I'm really struggling here to find the balance of my elements. And after a lot of pushing and pulling, I come to an end, but I always keep in mind that I will do this in 3D again, and I'm just hoping for kind of happy accidents to find some little shape that inspires me that I can use later on. Whenever I'm on the go, I bring my iPad with me, and since I had this workshop in mind on my last trip, I used the train ride to sketch a bit, and this time I really tried to sketch some science fiction architecture, come up with elements I could use later on. At some point I was actually dreaming about it, so the shape you see here is actually dreamt up. As you might have noticed, this time I started with the line drawing as opposed to the other drawings where I used shapes. I just created these drawings of this weird building here, which could be like a factory or something. And I liked it so much that I started, making a composition out of it. And I could go on forever, improving it. But I think at some point we will have to jump into 3D because it'll change everything, and I'll come up with a lot of new shapes there as well. So there's no point in making this perfect here. Here you can see my selection of my sketches, and I don't want to go for one specific sketch now, but I just want to keep them. I'll put them in my reference board together with all the other references, and I'll look at them every now and then while I'll create the composition in 3D, and I hope that this will inspire me. And so I guess I'll take a bit from a few of them.